Welcome to Film Addict. I am your host, the Film Doctor.
Oh, and once again,
You don't need to do your intro. It's really long.
On his royal throne, the film.
Daniel, he does this every time. Screams into the mic like we can't hear him. We can hear you.
And we're back in the Addict with a special edition of Film Addict. We're reviewing the Batman again, but this time we're gonna do a spoiler version of it. Again, you can only see this in theaters. And we have someone with us today who disagrees with our opinion. And you know, people, this is what we want. If you can get in the comments and just tell us if you don't agree with us, that's fine. We love to have conversation around it, and you know, we'll see how the conversation goes. So without further ado, I'll turn it over to Egghead Michael to lead us into our film.
I don't know who he's talking about. Anyway, yes, my good friend Daniel is here. He didn't like the Batman, and it's okay. He's wrong. It was still good. But supposedly he wrote a whole list of different reasons as to why he didn't like it. So before we get into it, I just want to say thank you, Daniel, for being here. And we're going to jump right into our film review. Alright, here we are, the film review. Batman.
The Batman.
Spoilers. These are we're spoiling everything. So if you're not ready, we're about to jump right into it. Daniel, why didn't you like the movie? They've already seen the one where we liked the movie. Let's hear why you didn't like it.
Oh, there's so many reasons. The first reason is the actor. My goodness, the director must have gone up to him at the beginning and said, "Here's what I need to do. Make an intense face. Okay, that's it. Nothing else. No other faces. Whole movie. That's all you need to do." There's no emotion or nothing from that guy.
Okay.
Just point me in one scene where it's not intense.
Should we respond to each of your points on what we think? Or you want to run through all of your points?
I'd like to run through a couple real quick, then I'll let you...
Okay. Let's hear it.
My second biggest thing was Batman in clunky boots. Batman coming out of the shadows like he's the Punisher. Batman's supposed to be a ninja-like character, sneaking up on bad guys, scaring them from behind, putting the fear into them.
Okay.
You didn't see anything.
I feel like I got to get my notebook and start taking notes on your notes.
All right, one more point, then I'll let you tackle these three. The third one is Batman. He's getting beat up in his fights. Getting smacked around, beat up.
Okay.
It's supposed to be like this super trained fighter in all these martial arts things.
Okay, I'm listening. I have so many. I see. Are you writing stuff down, Manny?
Yeah, I mean, you gotta, you know.
I'll let you go on through those three first. Tell me what you think.
Okay.
You want to go first, Manny?
Yeah. So the no expressions part. I tend to agree with you when actors don't have range, right? And they only do one emotion in a film. The only thing I will say about that is that that was the take of the Batman that they were going for, right? So it would disturb me if, let's say, they were going for that more Christopher Nolan type Batman and all Robert Pattinson did was Bruges. Then I would have a problem with it. But they were going for this grittier, darker version of Batman. So I can't knock him too much. I can understand why people have a feeling about Robert Pattinson being Batman. I totally get that. It's the same feeling I had about Ben Affleck being Batman. Hated it. Absolutely hated it. But what they did with the story lends itself to him being able to play a better Batman. If it required for him to have more emotion, we may have had a problem. But it's just what they did with the story lends to that. And then you talked about, I just want to make sure I'm quoting you right here. So then the clunky boots. I thought that lended itself to kind of a fear atmosphere. Maybe it was because we saw it in IMAX, so the sound was like 30,000 in our ear. Yeah. So that might be the reason, but I thought it lended itself to Batman being kind of scary. They tried to do their best with the fear thing, especially in explaining it in a way in the movie where it's not so much that he's all these places at once, it's the fact that they're scared that he could be in all of these places at once. And that was at the beginning of the movie, in all fairness. And then after that, we don't really touch on how scary Batman is. We just see him, kick the shit out of certain people or not kick the shit out of the people. That's only in the beginning of the film that we kind of get that feel. But I think they kind of did that in the beginning of the film. And then lastly, Batman getting beat up. I don't see Batman as like this super impenetrable superhero, right? Like he's a human, he's definitely trained. He's a trained assassin, League of Shadows, right? He's smart, he's a billionaire, but he's still a human, And him fighting all of these other people, he's got to take some licks. It can't be that he's invincible, because he's not invincible, right? He's a human being. I can see how at the end of the film where he basically lost the fight, that could be a problem. And I believe it was Catwoman had to save him. I can see how that could be an issue. But for the most part, I think they made him look like a badass pretty much throughout the entire film.
So you're gonna have to keep your little comments to a little bit shorter because it's 2-on-1 here. I want to get mine in and not have this like an hour-long show. Okay. So I'm gonna go real quick, but before I go through my assessment of what you said, were you a fan of the Christopher Nolan series? That's Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises.
I was actually. I thought it was done very well.
Okay, so looking at that in the comparison of like what is real, the clunky boots, blah blah blah. I looked at like Dark Knight Rising, and I see Bane, who's supposed to have this thing on his back that makes him beef up, and they didn't do it that way. It's really like it's somebody's vision. It can't hold to every single pleasure that somebody likes, whether it's the comic books, the TV shows, or the movies.
I hate to take this part, but I just
No. You took 20 minutes.
I just want to jump in here super quick. People actually took really big, huge issues with Bane's portrayal.
Okay, I don't give a fuck. They still like the series.
That's all I'm saying.
Okay,
No,
shut up.
I agree with him. There's so many different versions of Batman on different comics. It's impossible to stick with just one.
And we talked about it today at my job in terms of who killed his parents. Was it the Joker or was it two robbers? And there's two different versions that I've seen. I'm a huge Batman fan. In terms of the clunky boots, also, it goes back to, this is supposed to be like an origin. This is when he first became Batman. So this motherfucker wasn't pumping out all the technology. Over time he became, this is not Batman 20 years in, this is Batman 2 years in. And I think that maybe he was making all that noise because he wanted them to know he was coming. I mean, you don't know the vision of the director for that to kind of be held against him. Now, because my partner in crime here took about 60 minutes in order to give his detailed review, I kind of forget all of your points. You have the clunky boots. What else?
The one face of the actor.
Okay.
That's it.
No, there was a third one. What was the third one?
Batman getting beat up.
Oh yeah. Okay, I had 2 points for that. So straight face.
Maybe you should have took notes.
Maybe you should have taken 57 minutes. Shit, your review was longer than the fucking Batman movie. Anyway, as I was saying, in terms of straight face, it's Bruce Wayne. I don't know if you wanted him to be cracking jokes like he's Jim Carrey's the Riddler, but he is a somewhat serious person, and it was his portrayal. I mean, it's the same thing that I said, like his portrayal of Batman. We've seen different versions of Batman. And so in terms of getting beat up, Superman got beat up. Hell, Superman got killed by Batman.
Yeah.
So he lost to Darkseid. He lost to Gorilla Grodd. He lost to Batman. Even looking at, take it out of DC and Marvel, Goku, the great powerful Goku, got his ass whooped many a times and killed. So all these people, you can't expect, like Manny said, for him to be invincible.
Not expecting invincible. My problem was just when he's laid up unconscious on a police tape. That's a little That's a little past where you expect Batman to be.
Let me blow your
I forgot about that.
Let me blow your regular human ass up with a bomb inside of you, and let's see if you're not looking up at the sky, all dazed and confused. Regular human.
Agreed.
All right, let's hear your other points.
Okay, my other problem was with the villains. My goodness, man. The Penguin was what? They made him a drug dealer at most, and
he was an underboss, really. He wasn't even a drug. He was like an underboss.
Wasn't even an underboss. That was Carmine, right?
Carmine was the real boss. He wasn't even the crime boss. He was like an underboss.
I couldn't stand the portrayal of Penguin. I expected more evil, more henchmen around or something. Maybe it's me. I'm just so used to the villains being so overdone in Batman movies. Mm-hmm. Especially the Riddler with the Riddler costume. I can't smile at that even one bit. Come on, man.
Well, in my first review, and I don't know if you saw my first review, Daniel, but I made notion to that about his costume. I hated it.
You too? Okay, good.
Did you like Jim Carrey's version of the Riddler?
Jim Carrey was a little over the top. I gotta admit that.
Well, here's the thing, and I want to put this into perspective because I know that my partner in crime is going to take 3.5 hours to give his review, is that if you were the person that got paid hundreds of millions and however much a director gets, and you put your vision, do you think you're going to please everybody in the world? That's why you have Jim Carrey's version. That's why you have his version. You say what?
I don't know. I ain't going to please everybody. I ain't going to please half the people.
And whatever vision you wanted to create, it was your vision based on this concept. As long as you didn't change anything significantly, which they've tried to do. Let's make Spider-Man or Superman black now, played by Idris Elba. Let's do that. Now let's have a female Bond. Like, I hate when they change something that is, but this was just a particular take on these characters. No different than the Jim Carrey or Val Kilmer. Terrible. George Clooney. Terrible. But that was their take of what they thought Bruce Wayne or these villains were supposed to be. Mr. Freeze by Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Oh my god. Yeah, don't get me started on that.
Did you like Danny DeVito's Penguin?
I thought Danny DeVito was great as Penguin, actually.
Yeah. So I can see how, and it's hard, especially when you've seen a performance. I thought Danny DeVito as Penguin was pretty good too. And now we have Colin Farrell as a not fat Penguin. So that can be he was in a fat suit and he was skinny fat. He wasn't fat. That's no.
Yeah.
He was skinny fat. He was not that fat.
Now everybody's measuring how big somebody is and how much they weigh in movies. They guesstimating. Here's what I'll say. I can understand that, especially if you are someone who appreciates the comics and appreciates the previous iterations of Penguin that we've seen, right? Penguin is his own boss. He really doesn't take orders from too many people, unless they're working together on something. And even then, he's kind of ornery. He's not always a willing co-partner. So I can totally get that and how Penguin's this underboss, but I'm willing to lend them the credence that maybe they can tell a story about how Penguin becomes his own boss, right? Because if you go to the end, right, Carmine's gone now, so Penguin is the boss, and maybe this is a villain origin story as well. This is how Penguin became who he is as well. So maybe they're doing some interlacing storytelling there. And I'm gonna interrupt and intercede to say that I agree with that, because when you look at it, Catwoman didn't have the Catwoman suit, Batman didn't have the Batman suit, Riddler was fucking dressed in trash bags, and Penguin, all of these were the evolution of these characters 2 years in. So who knows that we'll see a different version. But I think that the Riddler, for this kind of take, everybody loved Dark Knight because of the crazy portrayal of Heath Ledger. And I think to come off of the goofy version of Jim Carrey's and jump into this more serious, scare, I was terrified. I don't know about you, but it was a darker, terrifying version of Riddler. And it was well acted. You talk about straight face from that character of Batman, but that wasn't the case with Riddler. He sold the shit out of that performance.
Yeah, let me ask you this too. Do you think if you would have wore, what we consider as a traditional Riddler costume, like a Riddler suit with question marks and stuff like that, that would have matched the seriousness of what they were going for? I get not liking the random green mask or whatever, like I understand that, but like I don't think they could have put a
with
normal
the question mark, it would have been overdone.
Yeah.
One or the other. Yeah, I mean, just maybe one question mark on the costume or something.
Not even overdone, but it just wouldn't have fit. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, the seriousness.
The tone of the entire film. You know what I mean?
Yes. I agree with that.
So what else? What else you got for us?
My other point. Well, you guys kind of stepped on this one already, and I agree with you. I was gonna mention about the Batcave and the Batmobile, how they're almost not there. But seeing as this is the intro, the origin of Batman, I can understand it. How that's like this is his first Batmobile. Batcave's still in production. That I completely understand. The thing I don't understand is why the Batcave, where he's hanging out most of the time, seems to be in the church bell tower. Where is this in the Wayne Manor?
Yeah, it seems to me, and that's another good question. It seems to me that he lives in Wayne Tower. That's the impression that I got.
Underneath.
He lives in Wayne Tower. Period. In general.
I thought when he was driving towards it, that was Wayne Tower, and he was going in a tunnel that was underneath it.
Yeah, that's where the cave is, but he lives in Wayne Tower. There is no Wayne Manor. There is no Wayne. Like that's it.
That's not
Oh, I didn't get that from the movie, or I didn't understand that to be.
But they kind of hinted at him having money problems too with the accounting thing. Yeah. So maybe they're doing something like that. Another plot device. I think a lot of what they were using is to use this movie also in certain ways to set up another film, which is what Hollywood does now. We have to. Yeah, they're not stopping with one film. We all know that they're gonna try to do 3 of these things, and if they could, they would be like Fast and Furious and do 10.
Yeah.
Well, they're doing 11, but I can only point out the same thing, that it's just the vision, and use the same excuse that this was the vision, this was the beginning, and that who's to say that eventually he gets his money together, he becomes rich and a little bit less. But in the same point is that this is a darker version. I mean, Batman was meant to be a darker version. If we're looking and comparing the movies to the comic books was bloody and dark and crazy. It wasn't really like what we've seen from any other Batman. What we see now is closer to the comic book version of Batman than it is anything else, but it's still somebody else's unique vision.
I have to agree with that. I've been reading the comics lately. I have to say it agrees with the dark metal version of Batman. I don't know if you read that series.
Yeah.
But there's a version of Batman where he's actually Bruce's father, and the mother and the son get killed. And it's much darker. It's much like that.
And here's the thing with comic books, because I don't read comic books. I think Manny does. So you two probably are the closest people that read a lot of them. But with the comic books, it's like different people take them on. And I found this out. I don't know if you're a wrestling fan. CM Punk and his wife wrote a comic book. Like anybody can write a comic book, and that's their vision. So you read all of these different ones. Anything can happen, but it's from their version. So I would see the movies as being that same concept.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I understand that perfectly.
I guess, Michael, and I'll push back on you. The problem is everyone has a sense of notion of who Batman is in their mind, right? Regardless of whether you've read the comics. If you know who Batman is, you expect certain things, right? And the comics can take that and do other things, but let's say they came out in this movie and Batman wasn't Bruce Wayne, he was just some other guy named Larry Johnson, right? People would have a problem with that. If Batman was Larry Johnson, when you have an established character, you have to at least stick to some of the lore.
Well, didn't they change the name of Riddler? Because his name was supposed to be Edward Nygma, and it was something else inside of this movie, which that I caught and that I didn't like. But
yeah, it's Nash. I think it's like Edward Nash in this movie or something like
that. So I have my gripes against it, but you can't look at some of those things of someone's vision and overall judge that entire movie, because everything's going to be a different take, especially nowadays with these companies just remaking every single movie. That's how we get Home Alone 7 or whatever they're on now.
But they're not, they're not all good. And also, again, I think the Riddler was an overall creative choice. You can't have a guy named Enigma
Yeah,
that's supposed to be serious.
that's the truth.
Okay.
I'm pretty honest too for the character.
You say what?
Here's my other biggest problem: the Martha Wayne
Mm-hmm.
being crazy.
I've heard this one, but go ahead.
Yeah.
Seriously, Martha Wayne, she's cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and turning everybody into a villain. Even Thomas Wayne. He worked with Carmine Falcone. It's like there's nobody in this movie that was not a villain.
There wasn't a bad guy yet. I don't have a defense for that. I've heard this argument before.
Same.
But I think they're trying to touch on what Dark Knight Rises tried to do, right? Which is that Gotham is not this place that is savable. I think that's what they're trying to touch on, and hopefully I'm right, and that's what they're building towards. When you let the Joker crazy, and then you build up to whoever that ultimate villain is supposed to be for the third movie. That's I think what Batman villains are trying to show Bruce Wayne, right? And he fights that notion as Bruce Wayne is Batman. That's what they're trying to show him. He fights that notion every single time that Gotham is not the savable place, that it's full of bad stuff. But to take, I guess I can see the gripes. It doesn't knock the film for me, but I can see the gripes of taking Batman's pure origin story, which is he just lost his parents. It's not like they were scumbag people, and just make everybody a scumbag. Like, it kind of dilutes the purpose of him being Batman.
Well, here's the thing that I'll just add on top of that. You know the story of Batman and his parents dying, but they never go deep into depth about the kind of people they were. You just know there are two people, they're married, they had a kid, they go to a play, they come out, they get killed. That's pretty much to the extent that we all know about.
Oh, I agree. I disagree. I say that they're always, Thomas and Martha Wayne, they're usually the founders of the city. They're usually charitable people who do nothing but help the town.
And that was portrayed in this movie, that they were trying to do this whole thing for this orphanage, blah, blah, blah. But what I'm saying is that they didn't delve deeper into them as people and who they were. Maybe they did have that backstory. So, like I said, it's someone else's version. So maybe they're just adding that complexity in order to tell the story. And in the same point, make it make sense, because this was really a revenge story from Riddler. So how is he getting revenge? This is the way that they did it, by delving deeper into something that we don't know anything about based on what we know about, in my opinion.
This is true. And here's my last one that I have. I think it was a big one for the story. There's no bad guy wins. All the bombs blow off. City gets flooded, and Batman, you actually hear him say, "Maybe vengeance isn't the way." Where's Batman?
I referenced this in our review without spoiling it. I said, people, you should really ask yourself if Batman really won at the end of this movie.
Yeah.
Because the answer is he did not. I agree. He did not win at the end of this movie, because a lot of people died.
I know anybody that's watching this is going to kind of get at me because I'm using the same excuse for it every single time of the vision. So I'm trying to change that to say that, especially if they're considering to do more, not every story ends happy, but it could be a continuation leading up to something big. No different than the concept of how we got Infinity War and Endgame. I mean, it might be building to something where he wasn't supposed to win. That they're going to continue this story on. He has to avenge himself or get vengeance, or whatever that the vision is set for this sequel.
I think you can't say that, because here's the problem, right? They're planning on moving on. They showed us that at the end of the film. They're moving on to the Joker, right? So this whole thing with
they're friends with the Riddler. He's friends with the Riddler.
He's friends with the Riddler, but they're moving on to the Joker. Like, the whole city being flooded, they're like, we're going to rebuild now. We're done with that now. So he's already lost.
We're not even talking about him. He doesn't even make news. He gets freaking upset about it.
Yeah, like he's already lost in that way, And losing this time can teach Batman something. But the problem is, especially in superhero movies, especially why this is a hard comparison to Infinity War, is because with Infinity War, you knew they were coming back to fix this, right? There was not a doubt in your mind they were not going to let that movie end just let the series end like that.
Yeah.
We are done with what happened. So that's the problem. Like, at the end of the day, it is a superhero movie, and what do people come for? Especially if you're going to do that, what you needed to do at the end, if you're going to do that, you need to cut it off right before the bombs explode, right? Because then people are thinking, oh, is Batman going to win? And then you come back and Batman wins, and he saves the day, But a lot of people are seeing superheroes, and even in the comics, they always prevail in the end. And I can see how a lot of people left the theater saying, Batman did not actually prevail.
There was no sense of the good guy winning at the end, not even partially.
Like, what did he won some sort of sense of vengeance. Vengeance is now not my
Yeah.
He won a moral battle, but he didn't win the physical battle. People still died in the city. What about all the people that weren't at the convention center?
I mean, you could say the same. you still could say the same thing for Infinity War, because whether you knew Endgame was coming and that they fight, you didn't know if they were going to win. But looking at Infinity War, the villain won and killed half the population. They lost. They made notion to them losing. I don't know how whether they lose or win still makes that a hinder towards, is it a good movie?
Here's the thing, though. At the end of the, before the next Infinity War, you didn't see Thor lay down his hammer and go, I think thunder is not the way.
You're really caught up on that line. Like, that really has scarred you, and you lost sleep about this.
Well, that's what Batman is about, right? Vengeance. That is literally what the character is about.
But he's also, this is beginning Batman, so maybe he has to find his way to really be about vengeance.
Well, he's not about vengeance anymore, Michael. He's about justice.
Okay.
They've already told us that.
All right. So we already know that Daniel has swayed your mind, and now you.
No. I want to say this. That does not make this a bad film for me. But I'm not gonna sit up here and act like he doesn't have a valid point, because he does.
Well,
there you go.
Scripts are written how they're written, and there are good scripts and there are bad scripts, and there are good lines and there are bad lines. Where is she?
I do have to jump back to one point I made at the beginning with his intense face, where even when he was Bruce Wayne at the funeral and other events, it's the same damn face.
Yeah. Again.
So let me ask you
this.
I don't care. Bruce Wayne is supposed to be the character Batman plays,
Yeah.
He's supposed to have the same face 99% of the time.
I think that's just because that's what they were going for. I think they're telling the story in a way where Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same person. People just don't know that Bruce Wayne and Batman are the same person. And they kind of play on that throughout the whole film, even with the whole him thinking that the Riddler actually knows who he is. Like, am I that obvious?
Yeah.
So I think that
I hated that scene so much.
Yeah.
You actually hated the whole movie, if we're being honest.
Saying, we gotta take out Bruce Wayne and Bruce Wayne this and Bruce Wayne that. And did him not supposed to realize it? Oh my goodness.
So what about the ending, since this is a spoiler kind of review with the Joker?
I was not a huge fan of it. First of all, the Joker needs his own introduction before Arkham. Because he is like the biggest psychopath in all of the Batman. It's like, if you can't give him the explosive introduction that he needs, you're missing something there.
Well, they didn't technically introduce him. He never said, "Hey, I'm Joker," or or they didn't show his face. I mean, it really
everybody knew.
You can know.
It didn't take long for people to know.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you've said your points. We've said our points. At the end of the day, did you convince us? Did we convince you?
Would I give it a second watch? Yes, I'll give it a second watch, considering all the points you've told me.
Now, let me ask this question, though.
No.
what was your rating, A to E, based on before this interview when you saw the movie, and has it changed at all afterwards?
Yeah, before this interview, I'd say it was probably an E.
Damn!
And right now,
sorry.
But I'm a hard grader.
We're gonna have him on the show more often.
right now, I'd say maybe C minus.
C minus.
Yes.
That's a significant improvement. Yeah, I with the Joker thing too. I just want to touch on that briefly. Michael is a hater.
Well, we don't have another 57 minutes, so let's.
I'm not gonna take 57 minutes with the Joker thing. I think it's very hard. It's gonna be very hard for this Joker character, mainly because of the precedent that is set before whoever this is now. Joaquin Phoenix knocked it out of the park, so that also does not help.
But we judged Joaquin Phoenix's performance no different than we judge everyone's performance.
Yeah.
And it's always comparing it to something else. Batman, anybody that does Batman is always going to be compared to The Dark Knight. Anybody that does Joker is always going to be compared to Heath Ledger.
I think it's easier to come into a character that has less expectations, right? We've seen now 2 great Joker characters. If this guy does not have an all-time great performance, it's going to be a problem.
Well,
we've seen 2 of them now.
Even with Jared Leto, I want to throw him in the mix because they filmed
and that's what I'm saying.
They filmed so many scenes. They filmed a whole bunch of scenes with him that were supposed to be phenomenal, but they never used it for the director's cut. So when you got Zack Snyder's vision,
Warner Brothers. I blame them.
When you got Zack Snyder's vision and you saw Joker at the end, that was a different one than the shitty one we saw in Suicide Squad. It was a different portrayal that we didn't get inside of Justice League. It's probably a hell of a performance, but we'll never see that footage. Now, granted, if they do another Justice League and we do get to see a little bit more of Jared Leto's take, I honestly think this motherfucker's going to knock it out the park too.
Well, he's done being
That's
the Joker.
true.
He's done
being him his shine.
No, he's done being the Joker, but
there might even be a Jared Leto version of this film that I love to death.
Yeah,
I haven't seen yet.
I mean, you know, he's done being the Joker. That's number 1. But number 2,
no, he's not. That's not true. But go ahead.
He's done being the Joker.
So
no, he's not. But go ahead.
He's done being the Joker.
No, he's not. Go ahead.
Because they're not. I don't know if you've paid attention to Zack Snyder and Warner Brothers beef, but
Warner Brothers isn't picking it up. I don't know if you're paying attention to it. HBO is willing to give him the money in order to continue that.
Yeah. HBO is doing that, but I don't think Jared. And the problem with Jared Leto is he's doing another character now, which is Dr. Morbius. But we don't need to get into that.
How many of them have done multiple characters as superheroes?
It's different universes, man. It don't matter.
Yeah, but most of the time, people are. I'm saying it might not work out for him schedule wise, depending on how Morbius does.
Okay, well, you don't know his schedule because you're a regular person.
I don't, but he's in a lot of shit lately. If you've seen. Number 2.
That's
number
true.
2. You know, we can only judge what they give us, right? I get that Warner Brothers didn't give us the greatest vision of the Joker that they could have possibly given us. But audiences cannot judge on what was. Whatever's left on the cutting floor is what's left on the cutting floor. We have no control over that. We can't say, hey, you need to put more Jared. We can say you need to put more Jared Leto in the film, right? Or we need to see him get a true shot and a true chance. But if they don't do that, that's not our fault. He's judged on what they put in the film.
My biggest problem is that they kind of stomped on my vision of Batman.
Yeah.
I gotta let that out.
Yeah. Well, they did that. They did that to a lot of people.
Okay.
You're not the only one. I've seen the points that you brought up, I've seen other people bring up. So it's not uncommon. If you have a preconceived notion of who Batman was, and this, I can assure you, probably doesn't jive with that.
No, not at all.
People take some dislike too, so I get it. I get it.
Well, it's neither here nor there. We have our opinions. Jump in the comments and let us know what your opinions are. Who you agree with. Did we help change your point of view? Because sometimes it takes being on the other side of the window, on the other side of the fence, to hear somebody else's point of view. And I'm not going to say you changed my point of view. Yes, you had good, valid points, but at the same point, for me as a filmmaker, is I understand vision. And this was just a different vision. No different than any other Batman version done by a different director. It was their version of it.
I mean, I get the same question you asked me. Where was your grade starting out and where is it now?
That's fair.
I think it's still at the same point. I think I'm still sticking at an A+ because as a filmmaker, I can look at the little knickknacks of knowing Batman, and this was the problem. Like the Martha thing that I already, hated and everything else. And I hated the Riddler's costume and everything else. But the fact of the matter is I'm not going there to fact check. I'm going there to enjoy a movie. And so at the end of the day, the grade is based on, was it a good movie? Was it an entertaining movie? Did I like the movie? Was it all inspiring? And so my grade stays the same.
Here's another question. Do you think your bias as a filmmaker affects that?
No, I don't, because at the same time is I love all kinds of movies, but when a movie sucks, it sucks. That's how we got the movie Vanguard with Jackie Chan. But at the same point is I've seen a movie called Run Lola Run. That's 2 hours of this running. Like literally, and it was a fucking amazing movie. So at the end of the day, it wasn't because for me as a filmmaker, it kept my attention. They had a good story. It was good. So I'm still a regular person, whether I'm a filmmaker or not. And so it still is, I have the appreciation for those other things as a filmmaker that don't make me hate the movie. But as a regular viewer, that's why the grade stays the same.
There you go.
So there it is. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Daniel, thank you for being a guest here on Filmatic. We will definitely have you on in the future if you're interested. Everybody else that's tuning in, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that bell, do that jazz. Maybe send up some smoke signals, tie a little note to a pigeon's leg, send it on its way, put a message in the bottle, throw it in the water, let it reach our shores. Until then, we will check you guys out next time, and this has been another exciting episode of Filmatic.
Filmatic.
Hey,